Ethan Morgan was no stranger to the feeling of being forgotten. For 28 years, he had never truly been seen as important in his own family. No matter how hard he tried, no matter how much effort he put into proving himself, all he ever received in return was indifference, perfunctory nods and comparisons that never worked in his favor. From a young age, Ethan had learned an important lesson. Family wasn't always a place of fairness. It all began when Sophia was born. At the time, Ethan was only 3 years old, too young to understand that from the moment his baby sister let out her first cry, his world had changed forever. Their mother devoted all her time to Sophia, constantly calling her the little angel. Whenever Sophia cried, everything had to stop to comfort her. But if Ethan cried, "You're a big boy now, don't whine like a baby." Ethan's childhood revolved around a simple reality. Sophia was always the priority. Her toys were always newer and nicer, her clothes always of the best quality. When Ethan wanted a remote-controlled car for Christmas at the age of 8, his mother said it was too expensive. But just a week later, Sophia received a doll set that cost twice as much, because their mother thought it suited her. These small incidents happened over and over again, and as they grew up, nothing changed. When Ethan got good grades in school, their mother would simply smile and say, "Oh, that's nice." But when Sophia got average grades, she would immediately receive a celebratory cake. When Ethan earned a scholarship to college, their parents only said, "Good, keep it up." But when Sophia participated in a small school competition, their mother boasted about it to the entire family. At first, Ethan still felt hurt, still held on to the hope that one day, his mother would look at him with the same pride she reserved for Sophia. But over time, he learned to stop expecting. After all, if you don't hope for anything, you can't be disappointed. After graduating, Ethan quickly found a stable job that allowed him to be independent. He moved out, rented a small apartment, and enjoyed a life where he no longer had to constantly witness his mother showering Sophia with affection while he was left in the shadows. He wasn't wealthy, nor was he extraordinarily successful, but at least he was free from living under his sister's shadow. Sophia, on the other hand, never had to worry about money or responsibility. After graduating, she didn't look for a job right away. Instead, she traveled across Europe for a year. Naturally, their parents funded the entire trip. When she returned, their mother used family connections to secure a good job for her. Sophia is too special for ordinary jobs, their mother once said when Ethan asked why his sister didn't have to find work on her own. Whenever Ethan visited home for the holidays, he no longer felt like he belonged there. Family dinners were always centered around Sophia, her job, her friends, her achievements, no matter how small. If Ethan tried to share something about his life, the conversation would quickly shift away. By now, Ethan was used to it. He wasn't sad anymore, nor was he angry. He just felt empty. One evening, as Ethan sat in his small apartment, his phone rang. It was his mother. He picked up. "Ethan, did you hear the good news? Sophia is getting married." Ethan blinked. "Really? That's great. Congratulations to her." "Yes, everything is being planned to be absolutely grand. You wouldn't believe it. Sophia's going to have a dream wedding." His mother's voice was full of excitement. Ethan could easily picture her beaming with joy, her face glowing with pride. Yet, throughout the entire conversation, she never mentioned any role for him in the wedding. She didn't ask if he wanted to help with anything. She didn't say that he had an important place in his sister's big day. He waited, but the invitation never came. Finally, as the call was about to end, his mother casually added, "Oh, I think you should come. After all, she is your sister. But you understand, right? This wedding is huge, and your father and I are extremely busy. Don't expect too much. Okay?" Ethan was silent for a few seconds. Then, in a calm voice, he replied, "I understand." After hanging up, Ethan stared at his phone for a long while. Once again, he had been pushed aside. Still, he told himself that this was Sophia's special day. He didn't want to make a big deal out of it. At least, not yet. A week after his mother's call, Ethan received the wedding invitation for Sophia's big day. But when he opened it, he noticed something strange. His invitation was completely different from the ones typically sent out by the family. His invitation was nothing more than a plain white card with a pre-printed message. The Morgan family cordially invites Ethan Morgan to the wedding of Sophia Morgan and Jake Bennett on date at venue. There was no handwritten note, no special message. Later, when Ethan accidentally saw a picture of another invitation on Facebook, one sent to a relative, he realized that all the other invitations were handwritten with personal messages from Sophia and Jake. To make things worse, his invitation contained no details about whether he was invited to the bachelor party or if he had any special role in the wedding. Ethan felt a bit uneasy, but he brushed it off. Maybe it was just a minor oversight. After all, this was Sophia's big day. He didn't want to dwell on small details. But then more signs started to appear. One evening, while scrolling through social media, Ethan came across a photo. Sophia and a group of friends, laughing and celebrating at a lavish party. The caption read, "The bride's amazing bachelorette party. A night to remember." Ethan hadn't been invited. He slowly scrolled through more pictures. Sophia beaming in an elegant dress, surrounded by friends and bridesmaids, raising their glasses in a toast, capturing every joyful moment. Even a few distant relatives were in the pictures. But Ethan, Sophia's own brother, was nowhere to be seen. A strange feeling settled in his chest. He wasn't the type who enjoyed partying, but he had at least expected to be invited. Even just as a formality, he decided to text his mother. "Hey Mom, I saw that Sophia had her bachelorette party. How was it?" She responded almost instantly. "Oh, it was wonderful. She had an amazing time with her friends. I wasn't invited, was I?" There was a long pause before she finally replied, her tone dismissive. "Sweetheart, the party was mainly for Sophia's close friends. Some distant relatives were invited because they're very close to her. And besides, you're not really into parties, are you?" Ethan felt a lump in his throat. Just because he wasn't a party person didn't mean he didn't want to be included. But he didn't argue. It was becoming clear he wasn't an important part of this wedding. A few days later, Ethan ran into an old friend, Lucas, one of Jake's groomsmen. Lucas clapped him on the shoulder, laughing. "Hey, Ethan, I was surprised you weren't on the groomsmen list. I thought you and Jake were pretty close." Ethan blinked. Groomsmen? No one had ever mentioned anything about that to him. The list was finalized already? "Yeah, a while ago. It's mostly Sophia's friends, some of Jake's co-workers, and even a few distant relatives." Ethan could hardly believe it. Jake's distant relatives had a bigger role in the wedding than he did. Sophia's own brother? Keeping his voice steady, he asked, "Oh, that's unexpected." Lucas chuckled awkwardly, sensing Ethan's discomfort. "Maybe Sophia just thought you weren't interested in stuff like this?" That excuse. Again. Ethan had heard it too many times before. Not interested. Not important. Not necessary. That night, Ethan opened his phone and sent a message to Sophia. "Hey, what's up with the groomsmen list? Am I really not part of it?" She replied almost immediately. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Ethan. I thought about it a lot, but we had limited spots and I had to prioritize the most important people. You understand, right? The most important people." Ethan stared at the screen, feeling a weight settle in his stomach. Taking a deep breath, he simply replied, "I understand." From that moment on, Ethan stopped feeling excited or even interested in the wedding. No one asked for his opinion on anything. His family never mentioned whether he could help with the preparations. His mother and Sophia talked about the wedding constantly, but whenever Ethan tried to join the conversation, they would respond vaguely before quickly changing the subject. One day, while visiting his parents' house, he overheard a conversation between his mother and Sophia in the kitchen. "Mom, do you think we should ask Ethan to help with anything?" Sophia asked. "No, dear. He's clumsy. He wouldn't be much help anyway." Ethan froze. Wouldn't be much help? Or did she just never want him involved? He stood there for a moment, bitterness rising in his throat, before quietly leaving before they noticed he had heard them. Ethan was beginning to accept that he wasn't truly welcome at this wedding. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. The day before the wedding, he received a message from a distant relative. "Ethan, are you okay? We've noticed that your family doesn't seem to be treating you fairly. If you need someone to talk to, don't hesitate to reach out." Ethan stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Sophia's wedding day had arrived. That morning, Ethan woke up early. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his simple suit. There was no excitement, no joy, just an empty feeling creeping into his chest. This was his sister's wedding, a significant family event. Yet Ethan felt like an outsider. He told himself that everything would be fine, that he just needed to attend, sit quietly, congratulate Sophia, and leave. But deep down, something unsettled him, an uneasy premonition. He stepped out of his apartment, got into his car, and drove to the venue. The Y Hotel was one of the most luxurious locations in the city, famous for hosting extravagant weddings. When Ethan arrived, the parking lot was already packed. Expensive cars lined the entrance, relatives and friends of Sophia, no doubt. Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped inside the grand lobby. The wedding hall was dazzling, illuminated by glittering chandeliers. Fresh flowers lined the aisles. Guests in elegant attire laughed and mingled. Soft music floated from a live orchestra in the corner. But in the midst of all this beauty, Ethan felt only one thing: disconnection. Ethan made his way to the reception desk to check his seating arrangement. A young woman from the event staff greeted him professionally. "Hello, sir. May I have your name to confirm your seat?" "Ethan Morgan." She typed his name into the system. Her brows furrowed. "Ethan Morgan?" she repeated. "Yes." She typed again, checked the screen. Her expression tightened. A strange discomfort crept up Ethan's spine. "Is there a problem?" he asked. The woman bit her lip, looking apologetic. "Your name isn't listed in the main banquet hall." Ethan frowned. "That must be a mistake. I'm the bride's brother." The woman hesitated. "Let me check with the manager." She walked away, leaving Ethan standing there, the uneasy feeling in his chest growing stronger. A few minutes later, a middle-aged man, clearly the event manager, approached him. "Mr. Ethan, I checked again. You are on the guest list. But your seat isn't in the main hall. You've been assigned to a spot outside, near the coat check area." Ethan froze. "You're joking, right?" The manager shook his head, his expression slightly uncomfortable. "I'm afraid not. This is the seating arrangement provided by the family." A quiet rage began to build inside Ethan. He wasn't seated in the main banquet hall. He had been pushed outside to the coat check area, like an afterthought, like he didn't belong. Taking a deep breath, Ethan forced himself to stay calm. He nodded at the manager and slowly walked toward the hallway where they had seated him. And when he got there, he couldn't believe his eyes. Near the coat check area, there was a small table with 3 lonely chairs. No elegant tablecloth, no decorations, no fresh flowers, just a plain, empty table. This was his seat? Ethan looked around. No other guest had been placed like this. Everyone else was inside the banquet hall, laughing, celebrating. Meanwhile, he had been pushed out here, cast aside like an unimportant guest. All the years of unfair treatment, the favoritism, the neglect came rushing back in that moment. Ethan clenched his fists. No, this time he wasn't going to stay silent. He turned around and strode toward the main hall, scanning the crowd for Sophia. When he spotted her, she was laughing with friends, completely unaware of his presence. Ethan stepped up to her, his voice cold. "Sophia." She turned, blinking in surprise. "Oh, Ethan? Why aren't you at your seat?" He let out a short, humorless laugh. "I have a question. Why is my seat outside in the hallway?" Sophia's expression shifted slightly, her lips curling into an almost amused smirk. "Are you really making a big deal out of this?" "Today is my wedding, Ethan." Ethan's gaze hardened. "Don't change the subject. You arranged this, didn't you?" Sophia crossed her arms, looking impatient. "Fine. You want the truth? Here it is, seating was limited. I had to prioritize the people who actually matter to me. You're just A regular guest. I figured you wouldn't mind. A regular guest. Her words cut deeper than a knife. A regular guest, he repeated, his voice eerily calm. Before he could say anything else, their mother suddenly appeared, her face anxious. Ethan, don't cause a scene. This is Sophia's special day. Can't you just let this go? Let this go? They had pushed him aside his entire life, treated him as lesser, and now they expected him to just accept it again? Ethan clenched his jaw. He looked at Sophia, the sister he had spent his entire life trying to please. Then he turned around and walked away. But not to leave the wedding. He was going to find someone important. Jake. Ethan stepped out of the banquet hall, his heart still pounding with anger. The feeling of being cast aside like an outsider, of being treated as insignificant by his own family, left him hurt and bitter. But this time, instead of suppressing it like before, he felt a strange surge of energy rise within him. He couldn't just endure this anymore. As he walked down the hallway, Ethan paused. He looked around, searching for one particular face. Jake Bennett, the groom. But to Ethan, Jake wasn't just the groom. Jake used to be his best friend. Ethan hadn't seen Jake in years. They had once been inseparable in college, best friends who studied together, traveled together, and shared dreams of the future. Jake had been someone Ethan could trust. And now Jake was marrying Sophia. A strange coincidence. Yet, throughout the entire wedding planning process, Jake had never once reached out to Ethan. What did that mean? Did Jake know how Sophia and her family had treated Ethan? Or had he also decided that Ethan wasn't important? Ethan was determined to find out. He walked through the hallway, scanning the crowd. Then he spotted him. Jake was standing near the bar, laughing with a group of groomsmen. Ethan's chest tightened. Jake looked almost the same, confident, his signature bright smile still in place. But something was different. Something Ethan couldn't quite put his finger on. Ethan walked up to him. Jake! Jake turned, and for a moment, his eyes widened in surprise. Ethan? Ethan crossed his arms, staring at his old friend. Long time no see. Jake chuckled, clapping Ethan on the shoulder. Oh my God! I can't believe this. You actually came to my wedding. How many years has it been? Ethan smirked. I wouldn't know. But I do know this. Apparently you forgot I'm the bride's brother. Jake's smile faltered slightly. Ah! Ethan's gaze sharpened. Tell me the truth, Jake. Do you know what's happening? Jake hesitated. What do you mean? Ethan let out a cold laugh. That I was cut from the groomsmen lineup? That I was assigned to sit outside in the hallway like some stranger? That Sophia treats me like I'm nothing in her own wedding. Jake blinked, looking genuinely confused. Wait, you were seated outside the hall? Ethan immediately knew Jake had no idea. Jake turned to one of the groomsmen nearby and whispered something. The man nodded, confirming something. Jake's face changed, from confusion to anger. He looked back at Ethan. Are you kidding me? I thought you were seated with the family. Ethan raised an eyebrow. So, you really had no say in this? Jake exhaled sharply. I had no clue. Sophia handled the guest list and seating arrangements. I just assumed everything was set up properly. Ethan studied Jake's expression, searching for any sign of dishonesty. But all he saw was genuine frustration. Jake really hadn't known. But he knew something else. Ethan. Jake lowered his voice. We need to talk. Alone. They left the noisy banquet hall and found a quiet corner in the garden outside. Jake glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then let out a long breath. I knew Sophia wasn't perfect, but I didn't think she would treat you like this. Ethan folded his arms. You don't know the half of it. Jake hesitated. I knew some things, but I didn't realize it was this bad. Ethan tilted his head. Did you know what she said about your mother? Jake's expression darkened. My mom. Ethan slowly nodded. I overheard it. Sophia called her annoying. Said she dressed poorly and acted like she was more important than she really is. Silence. Jake's jaw clenched. His anger shifted, no longer just frustration, but something deeper. You're sure? He asked, his voice dangerously low. Absolutely. Jake's hands curled into fists. My mom is the kindest woman I've ever known. She's loved Sophia, helped her plan this entire wedding, supported her. And Sophia said that about her. Ethan nodded. Jake closed his eyes and exhaled sharply, as if trying to contain his rage. Ethan. His voice was quiet but firm. I think I made a mistake. Ethan didn't respond, he just watched his friend. I ignored the signs, Jake admitted. But now, I'm not so sure anymore. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Are you doubting the wedding? Or the entire marriage? Jake didn't answer, but in the heavy silence, Ethan knew Jake was questioning everything. Ethan stood in the quiet garden, the glow from the banquet hall casting dim reflections on his face. For the first time in years, he felt like he was in control. Inside, amidst the laughter, the toasts, and the fake smiles, one person was basking in the perfect illusion she had built for herself, Sophia. And now Ethan knew he could tear it all down. Looking at Jake, who was slowly sinking into thought, Ethan decided to push him to the edge of the truth. Ethan crossed his arms and stared at Jake. I have a question. Jake looked up. Do you really want to marry Sophia? Jake didn't answer immediately. He hesitated, and that hesitation said everything. I don't know anymore. Jake took a deep breath, then shook his head. ***. Ethan nodded. You know, Jake, Sophia has always been great at hiding things. She creates a perfect image while the reality is very different. If you need more proof. Ethan pulled out his phone, opening a voice recording he had saved from an earlier conversation between Sophia and their mother. Sophia's voice played out, crystal clear. Oh, come on, Mom. Mrs. Bennet always dresses so old-fashioned. I just don't want my wedding photos to look ridiculous. Jake went completely still, his hand clenched into a fist, his face shifting from shock to rage. She actually said that? You heard it yourself. Jake didn't respond, but Ethan knew this was the breaking point. Jake would never see Sophia the same way again, and that meant Ethan had an ally now. It didn't take long for Ethan and Jake to decide on a plan. No lies, no tricks, just the truth. And the best way to do it? Right in the middle of the wedding. They headed back inside. The wedding reception was at its peak. Guests had finished dinner, wine glasses were empty, and all eyes were on the stage. Only one thing remained, the speeches. And Sophia had no idea that her wedding speech would turn into her worst nightmare. Ethan stepped onto the stage. Sorry to interrupt, but as the bride's brother, I thought I should say a few words. Sophia, sitting next to Jake, went pale. She hadn't planned for this. What are you doing? She hissed through gritted teeth. Ethan smiled lightly. Just a speech, Sophia. It's your special day, after all. Without waiting, Ethan turned to the guests, gripping the microphone tightly. I want to tell you all a little story about Sophia. A story I think the groom's family will find interesting. The room fell dead silent. Sophia's face drained of color. Ethan cleared his throat, speaking slowly, deliberately. I remember when Sophia was really worried about this wedding. Not because of the stress of marriage, no. But because she was afraid someone would ruin her wedding photos. Murmurs started among the guests. Ethan locked eyes with Mrs. Bennet, Jake's mother. Specifically, Mrs. Bennet. Mrs. Bennet blinked in confusion. Ethan continued, his tone calm but sharp as a knife. Sophia told me that if Mrs. Bennet dressed too old-fashioned, she would ruin her perfect wedding aesthetic. The room shifted immediately. Silence. Then whispers. Then a sharp inhaled breath from Mrs. Bennet. Sophia shot up from her seat. You're lying, she shrieked. But Ethan wasn't done. He simply pressed play on his phone. And Sophia's own voice filled the hall. Oh, come on, Mom. Mrs. Bennet always dresses so old-fashioned. I just don't want my wedding photos to look ridiculous. There was no escape. Everyone had heard it. Mrs. Bennet stood up, her face red with anger. After everything I've done for you, this is what you think of me? Jake turned to Sophia, his voice ice-cold. Tell me the truth, Sophia. Did you really say that? Sophia stammered, scrambling to find a way out, but the truth was already out. Some of the bridesmaids started whispering, laughing quietly. They had suspected this for a while, but they never thought it would be exposed like this. Jake's father rose from his seat, his face grim. "I don't want my son marrying someone this two-faced." That sentence sealed Sophia's fate. Jake slowly stood, looking at Sophia like she was a stranger. "You told me you loved my family, that you wanted to be a good daughter-in-law." He let out a short, bitter laugh. "Now I see. It was all an act." Sophia panicked. Tears started spilling down her face. No, it's not like that. Jake, please, don't listen to them." Jake stared at her, his jaw tight. "Not like that? So your own words are a lie now." Sophia looked around the room, but no one was defending her. Not even her own mother. For years, Ethan had been the one ignored, pushed aside, treated as invisible. And now, Sophia was the one being cast out. Inside the grand wedding hall, the atmosphere had completely changed. What was once a lavish celebration filled with laughter and wine had now turned into a living nightmare for Sophia. Ethan stood in a corner, watching everything unfold. He didn't need to say anything else. The truth had already spoken for itself. And now, Sophia had to face the consequences. Mrs. Bennet, Jake's mother, a woman who was usually gentle and composed, now stood with her face flushed red with fury. "After everything I've done for you, you had the nerve to call me old-fashioned?" Her voice trembled, not from sadness, but from pure outrage. "Who do you think you are, looking down on me like that? I welcomed you into this family. I helped you plan this wedding. I treated you like my own daughter. And this is how you see me? As someone beneath you?" All eyes turned to Sophia. She looked pale, frozen, her gaze darting around desperately, searching for someone to step in and save her. But this time, no one stood up for her. Her bridesmaids, who had been laughing and celebrating with her all night, simply stood in silence, unwilling to get involved. Jake hadn't spoken yet. He sat there, staring at the table, as if trying to process everything at once. Sophia grabbed his hand, her voice shaky with desperation. "Jake, I didn't mean it like that. I just misspoke. Everyone is misunderstanding." Slowly, Jake looked up. His eyes were cold, distant. "Then tell me, Sophia," he said in a dangerously quiet voice. "Do you actually love me?" Silence. This was no longer about just the wedding. This was about their entire marriage. Everyone held their breath, waiting for her answer. Sophia opened her mouth, but couldn't answer immediately. Jake watched her closely. "Do you love me, Sophia? Or do you just love the idea of a lavish wedding and a perfect marriage with someone you think will boost your social status?" His voice wasn't angry. It was disappointed. Sophia stammered. "Jake, don't do this. Of course, I love you. We planned a future together, No, Sophia." Jake cut her off. "I want the truth. No pretty words, no fake smiles. If you truly loved me, why would you say such things about my family? Why would you treat your own brother the way you do?" Sophia's lips parted, but no words came out. And in that moment, Jake knew the answer. Mrs. Morgan, Sophia and Ethan's mother, sensed her daughter was losing and immediately stepped in. "This is all a misunderstanding. Jake, you can't let a small mistake ruin such an important day. A marriage isn't just about a few careless words." She tried to keep her voice calm, but everyone could hear the panic behind it. But this time, she couldn't control the situation, because Jake's father, a usually quiet but firm man, stood up from his seat. "No, this is not a small mistake." The room fell silent. Mr. Bennet stared at Mrs. Morgan, his voice cold and sharp. "We will not allow our son to marry someone who is manipulative, selfish, and disrespectful to our family." The final blow had been struck. Sophia's breath hitched. "No, Dad, don't say that. Jake, I love you. You can't let this ruin our future." Jake let out a deep sigh, his eyes filled with exhaustion. "Not everyone is afraid of losing you, Sophia." His words were the final nail in the coffin. When Sophia realized everything was slipping away from her, her fear turned into rage. She spun around, glaring directly at Ethan. "This is all your fault. You ruined my wedding." Gasps rippled through the crowd. But Ethan? He just smirked. "No, Sophia. You ruined it yourself." Sophia trembled, her face burning with fury. She lunged forward, as if she wanted to hit him, but Jake stepped between them. "Stop it, Sophia." She turned to Jake, tears streaming down her face. "You can't do this to me. I spent a whole year planning this wedding. We had everything mapped out. Everything was supposed to be perfect. I can't lose it all over one mistake." Jake stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, in a quiet but firm voice, "You need to learn how to take responsibility for your actions." Mrs. Bennet stepped forward, placing a hand on her son's shoulder. "Jake, let's go." Jake nodded. He turned back to Sophia one last time. "I'm sorry, but I can't do this." And right in front of all the wedding guests, Jake took off his wedding ring and placed it on the table. Sophia stood frozen, like she couldn't believe what was happening. Jake walked away. The Bennet family walked away. One by one, the wedding guests began to quietly get up and leave. No one wanted to stay to witness the complete collapse of Sophia's life. The sound of footsteps echoed throughout the grand hall, growing fainter as more people left. Ethan stood still, watching his sister. This time, she was the one being left behind. Ethan stepped out of the wedding hall, the cool night air far more refreshing than the suffocating tension inside. For the first time in his life, he felt truly free. For years, he had stayed silent. For years, he had endured. But today, at last, he had made everyone see the truth. Behind him, he could still hear angry voices. Sophia yelling, desperately trying to salvage what was left of the wedding. But it was over. As Ethan entered the hotel lobby, he noticed a small group of guests still lingering, whispering about what had just happened. One of Jake's distant relatives, a middle-aged man, stepped forward and patted Ethan's shoulder. "You did well, kid." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "I only told the truth." The man smirked. "Exactly. But not everyone has the courage to say it at the right moment." Several other guests nodded in agreement. A few even clapped softly. For the first time in his life, Ethan didn't feel invisible anymore. Just then, the doors to the banquet hall swung open. Sophia stormed out, her eyes red and swollen from crying, but still burning with rage. "You!" Ethan turned around, completely calm. "What is it, Sophia? You're a saboteur. You did this on purpose, didn't you?" Ethan shrugged. "I only told the truth." "Do you have a problem with the truth?" Sophia shook with fury. "You're selfish. You've always been jealous of me. You wanted to steal my happiness." Ethan laughed. "Jealous? Of someone who just got dumped at their own wedding?" Sophia's mouth snapped shut. "You think you're so great?" She spat. "You think you're a good person?" Ethan took a slow step forward, lowering his voice. "No, Sophia. I don't think I'm a good person. But at least I'm not a fake." Sophia's fists clenched, but she couldn't say anything, because everyone knew who was really in the wrong. Ethan turned and walked toward the gift table, where a mountain of wedding presents had been placed. He spotted his own gift, the one he had carefully prepared, thinking that despite everything, he still wanted to be a good brother. But now he saw no reason to keep that kindness. He picked up the gift and turned back to Sophia. She stared at him, horrified. "What are you doing?" Ethan smirked. "Taking back my gift." "Are you serious?" He shrugged. "You said I wasn't a close family member, right? So why should I give a gift to a stranger?" A few guests snickered quietly. Others exchanged amused glances, trying to hold back their laughter. Sophia's jaw clenched, her fury boiling over, but she had no comeback. Ethan shook his head, then turned and walked away. Just as Ethan was about to leave, his mother, Mrs. Morgan, rushed out, blocking his path. "Ethan, you can't just walk away from your family like this. You ruined your sister's wedding." Ethan looked at her, but there was no pain in his eyes this time, only indifference. "No, Mom. Sophia ruined it herself." "You can't leave like this," she pleaded. Ethan let out a cold laugh. "Mom, Do you remember how many times I was pushed aside? How many times you chose Sophia over me, no matter what she did? Mrs. Morgan's lips parted, but no words came out. Ethan continued. You always told me to be the bigger person, to let it go, to not make a scene. He tilted his head, staring straight into her eyes. Well, take a good look, Mom. Now that everything has fallen apart, you still expect me to take responsibility. Mrs. Morgan stood frozen. Ethan let out a small sigh, then said one final thing. Not this time. I'm not giving in anymore. Then he turned and walked away, without looking back. As Ethan stepped outside the hotel, Jake was already there, standing with his family. Ethan paused, meeting his old friend's gaze. Jake sighed and shook his head. Thanks, man. Ethan smirked. Are you sure? You just lost a wife. Jake chuckled. No, I just dodged a massive mistake. They exchanged a knowing look. Nothing more needed to be said. Jake turned back to his family. Ethan kept walking toward his car. As Ethan drove away from the hotel, he felt lighter than he ever had before. For years, he had been the one left behind. For years, he had been the one overlooked. But this time he was the one who walked away first. And for the first time in his life, he had no regrets. The morning after the disastrous wedding, Ethan woke up to an unusual sense of peace. For the first time in years, he didn't feel weighed down by expectations or disappointment. He sat up in bed, reached for his phone, and unlocked the screen. 23 unread messages. Ethan sighed. He knew this was coming. His life had never truly been peaceful whenever his family was involved. The first set of messages came from his mother. Small blue diamond, Mom. Ethan, do you even realize what you've done? You ruined your sister's wedding. I can't believe how cruel you are. Small blue diamond, Mom. Do you know that Sophia cried all night? She's devastated. She lost everything just because of your harsh words. Small blue diamond, Mom. Why couldn't you just stay silent? Why did you have to ruin the most important day of her life just to get revenge? Small blue diamond, Mom. You've cut yourself off from this family. Don't expect me to ever forgive you. Ethan smirked. Of course she would react like this. She had never held Sophia accountable for anything. No matter what his sister did, it was always Ethan's fault in the end. He didn't reply. He simply moved on to the next messages. Small blue diamond, Sophia. Do you even understand what you've done? Small blue diamond, Sophia. Jake broke off the engagement. His family doesn't want anything to do with me anymore. You destroyed my life. Small blue diamond, Sophia. Why are you so jealous of me? Just because no one loves you, you had to drag me down too. Small blue diamond, Sophia. You are the most pathetic person I've ever known. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Jealous? He let out a dry chuckle. Sophia still didn't get it. She refused to take responsibility for her own actions. Instead of realizing her mistakes, she blamed him. Ethan sighed. There was nothing left to say to her. Without hesitation, he deleted her messages without replying. Just as he was about to put his phone down, a message caught his eye. Small blue diamond, Dad. Ethan, are you okay? Ethan froze. For the first time in his life, his father had messaged him first. His father, the man who had always been distant, indifferent, the man who had let his mother control everything, was now reaching out to him. Ethan couldn't help but feel a bit surprised. Slowly, he typed a response. Small blue diamond, Ethan. I'm fine. Small blue diamond, Dad. Your mother and Sophia are furious. Small blue diamond, Ethan. I know. Small blue diamond, Dad. But you weren't wrong. Ethan stared at the screen. His father just said he wasn't wrong. That was something he had never heard before. Just seconds after reading the message, his phone rang. Dad was calling. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then answered. Dad. His father's voice was calm. Not angry, not disappointed like his mother's. Ethan, do you have time to talk? Ethan narrowed his eyes. Yeah, what's going on? There was a brief pause before his father let out a deep sigh. I just want to say that I saw everything that happened yesterday, and I think it's time I finally spoke up. Ethan blinked in confusion. What do you mean? His father spoke slowly, his tone unusually serious. I've stayed silent for too long. I let your mother control everything. I let you be treated unfairly for years. And yesterday, when I saw you stand up for yourself, I realized I should have done that a long time ago. Ethan sat there in silence, completely stunned. You really think that? Yes, his father admitted. I saw the way your mother reacted, how Sophia tried to shift the blame onto you instead of taking responsibility. And I can't ignore it anymore. Ethan swallowed hard. He wasn't sure how to feel. Part of him felt relieved. Finally, someone in his family was acknowledging the truth. But another part of him was skeptical. So, what are you going to do now? His father sighed. I don't know yet, but I do know one thing. I'm not going to let your mother dictate everything anymore. Ethan didn't respond right away. This was a huge shift in his family dynamic. Could his father actually change? Or was this just temporary guilt? For now, Ethan decided to wait and see. In the days that followed, Ethan didn't reach out to his mother or Sophia. But he heard rumors about what was happening. The Bennett family completely cut ties with Sophia. Jake had disappeared from her life entirely. Their mother was still furious, but for the first time ever, their father wasn't taking her side. The Morgan family was breaking apart. Ethan didn't feel happy about it, but he also didn't regret anything, because for once in his life he knew this wasn't his fault. A week had passed since Sophia's wedding turned into a disaster. The city was still bustling as usual, but for Ethan, everything felt different. No more daily phone calls filled with blame and guilt from his mother. No more feeling overlooked every time he went home. No more trying to please people who never truly valued him. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt like he was finally living for himself. Ethan sat in his favorite cafe, sipping a hot coffee. The emptiness he once felt was gone. His phone rested quietly on the table. No messages from his mother. No calls from Sophia. Maybe, finally, they had accepted that he was no longer someone they could control. His mind drifted back to the wedding. He remembered Sophia's pale face when Jake took off his ring and walked away. He remembered his mother's rage when she realized her control was crumbling. He remembered his father's silence as he finally stood by Ethan's side. And Ethan didn't regret a single thing. Some distant relatives still tried to update him on Sophia's situation. Small blue diamond relative? Did you hear? Sophia left the city? Small blue diamond Ethan. Yeah, I heard. Small blue diamond relative. I think she's trying to start over somewhere else. She's probably still embarrassed about what happened. Ethan simply smiled. Wherever Sophia was, it no longer mattered to him. One evening, as Ethan was getting ready for bed, his phone buzzed. It was his father. Ethan, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. There was a short silence before his father spoke again. I know things still aren't settled with your mother, but I want you to know, I support you. Ethan paused, surprised. You really mean that? Yes, I let you be treated unfairly for too many years. I can't change the past, but I can do better from now on. Ethan took a deep breath. For the first time, his father was finally trying to be a real parent. I appreciate that, Dad. His father hesitated before adding, I know you may not want to hear this, but do you think one day you could forgive your mother? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Maybe, but not today. The next morning, Ethan woke up early and stepped outside, taking a deep breath of fresh air. He didn't know what the future held. He didn't know if Sophia would ever truly change. He didn't know if his relationship with his mother could ever heal. He didn't know if his father would keep his promise. But there was one thing he knew for sure. For the first time ever, he was no longer trapped in his family's shadow. He had chosen the truth. He had chosen himself. And he had no regrets.